Agent Power Huddle is a daily jumpstart, giving you all the tools you need to create an amazing real estate career. Led by top experts in the field, you'll learn how to sell more houses in less time while creating the life you want. Welcome to the Agent Power Huddle.
Hello. Welcome out there.
Monday, young man.
Thank you, Darius. Good to see you. Good to see you guys. It's always good to have everyone here on Monday. Do a little mindset recentering before the week begins. And one of the cool things about hosting these events is it gets me in that mindset too. And so that's actually a perfect lead in to what I want to talk about this week, which is routines and the importance of routines. And while I know that this can be kind of a dry subject and kind of boring, nobody really wants to talk about routines. It's really, really, really important to our mindset, because the reality is we're routine machines. We are creatures of habit, period. You show me your life, you show me your results, and I'll show you your habits. So we all have habits. It's a natural way for our mind and our body to be able to conserve energy. So if we are constantly on the look for what's new, what's different, we're constantly have new behaviors and all of that kind of stuff, it takes a lot of energy for our mind to take that information in, process it, make a decision, and then react. That takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot less energy to fall into a habit, to fall into a pattern. And so our brain naturally wants to take us back to I guess you could call it a place of homeostasis, where we just chill. And so this isn't necessarily a bad thing. But when we talk about something like, trying to build a new business, we're trying to become a better parent, we're trying to lose weight, we're trying to get, do whatever it is that we want to do in our life, we can actually train ourselves to do the things, to build the habits that are going to get us there. So then our brain says, oh, the easiest thing is to wake up and go to the gym at 6 a.m. every morning. That's actually the easiest practice, because I'm so used to it, I don't want to fight against it. It takes way more work for me to be like, I don't want, how can I find a way around it? It's a lot easier to just do it. That's why for any of you that have been to the gym, for me, I actually hate going to the gym and working out. So I play basketball and do yoga and things like that, because that's something that I enjoy and I can get up for it. But, when I go to the gym, and, when in my life, when I have made the commitment to going to the gym, that first month is brutal. It's just like, oh, I got to get up. I gotta, go do this and do that. And my routine is really difficult at the gym. I'm like, wait, what is today? What list do I need to do? What's important? What's not important? And it's really exhausting. But then after a month, you kind of get into a rhythm, right? And then when you don't go, it feels weird. So we can always build new habits in our life. And whenever we are changing a habit, it always feels weird. So I coach basketball for my son's team there in 7th grade. And, we do a lot of shooting and things like that. And it's always kind of fun when I'm working on somebody's shot, because, tucking your elbow, get your hand underneath the ball, make sure you're following through like this, and I'm changing something. They always push back every time. They're just like, this feels weird. This can't be right. Oh, what are you doing? You're screwing me up. Like, stop it. And I'm like, no, just trust me. Just do this 1,000 times and you're going to be a better shooter. And as they slowly start to get more used to having that elbow in and having the proper form, their shot begins to improve. Everything feels weird when we implement something new. And so my first message with this morning, when we're talking about routines and habits, is please get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like, we cannot create the life that we want without being uncomfortable. And, it's kind of, I don't know. It's like an I don't know. It's a paradox, right? Like being uncomfortable actually in my life has made me happier, has given me more joy. It's given me more contentment, more fulfillment, because when I'm uncomfortable, I realize how powerful I am. I realize how much I can do when I get uncomfortable. It doesn't mean that I'm never not, uncomfortable. Like I relax, I chill. But when I'm working, when I'm growing, I intentionally make myself uncomfortable because it makes me better. So get used to being uncomfortable. So once again, I had mentioned that, we're creatures of habit. We already have routines. So, just bring to your mind like one thing that you're working on right now. And let's go with one thing that maybe isn't working the way that you want it to. Maybe it's something that like you kind of repeatedly get back into the same patterns where it's like, oh, why do I keep doing that? Oh, man, I've got to stop. These are the things we say to ourselves. I have to stop doing that. I got to stop doing that. Yes, you're right. I need to do that, right? These things that we have to do, but for some reason we don't. Bring that thing into your mind and start thinking about some of the patterns that are around that behavior that you say you want to change. Maybe it's making more phone calls. Maybe it's doing your CMAs for your sphere. Maybe it's going to networking events. Maybe it's working out. Maybe it's eating right, like getting more sleep. Who knows what it is. But whatever that thing is, just bring that to your mind and just try to like identify some of the patterns and structures that you have built in your life that are reinforcing that thing that's not happening. So here's another kind of paradoxical thing. So these things that we say that we don't want in our life, if they continue to show up, the reality is we actually do want them. We want them because they're easy. We want them because they're comfortable. We want them because they're familiar. We want them because, typically, right, we don't want to get uncomfortable. And so we just kind of keep doing the same things that we were doing before because it's easy. And then we say, oh, yeah, I shouldn't do that. And then we do it again. Every time we do that, every time we go back against what we say we want, we're creating a habit. We're reinforcing a behavior. And the more we do it, the harder it becomes to shift. Not impossible, just the harder that it becomes to shift. So if you look at the way your brain works, right? So you've got all these neurons, right? And the neurons connect in like certain pathways. And so if you kind of think about like a sledding hill, I live here in Colorado, right? So we get a lot of snow. If you think about a sledding hill, you got like 3 feet of snow and you're cutting the fresh tracks. You hop on your sled and you go down and you carve this path down the hill and you run back up and you go down that same path again and you go down that same path again. Now you've got these 3-foot walls on the side of you. And if you want to veer off and create a new path, it's going to be pretty difficult. You've got to like really like, halfway down the hill, you got to like throw your weight into it and maybe you'll start a new path and you'll go a little bit and then you got to run back up and then you got to do it again and again and again. That's kind of how our brain works. So it creates these pathways and it's really easy over time. It gets easier for the chemicals to be able to pass from one neuron to another. And so they link together and they get stronger. And so every time we reinforce that behavior, I'm just going to hit the snooze button. I'll make my calls tomorrow. I'll just eat this donut. Whatever it is, our brain goes, okay. And it rewires that section of our brain. And then we do it again and it gets stronger. We do it again and it gets stronger. So this is why creating new routines and new habits is difficult, because we have to break those bonds and reconfigure them differently in our brain. And our brain doesn't want to do that. It wants to stay the same. And so it takes a lot of willpower, a lot of conscious thought for us to go and start rewiring our brain. Joe Dispenza talks about this stuff at length, and he does such a good job of explaining how the rewiring of our brain works. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, I would definitely check out Joe Dispenza. Go onto YouTube. He's got tons of free content. And then maybe buy a couple of his books. Like he's got just a wealth of information. So that's just a little bit about like, all right, so habits, how we reform them, why they're difficult, all that kind of stuff. But once again, going back to that same concept really quick, once we break those bonds and we start creating new bonds, if we reinforce that behavior, guess what? It becomes easier to do the things that we've been saying we need to do. And so one of the biggest benefits of creating new habits is consistency. So when we talk about real estate or really any business, it's funny. Like, I really don't think I'm that smart. And I don't think I'm that good at business either. I really don't. But I've been successful in real estate. And the reason why I believe I've been successful in real estate is because I have very consistent habits. When early on in my career, when I had really poor work habits, we'll call it, what would happen is I would have a week where I was crushing it, and then I would have like 2 or 3 weeks where I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And that was really hard, and my business was not flourishing. My business was not working very well. One day I sat down and had coffee with a lender, and he gave me something called the Greatness Tracker. And the Greatness Tracker basically just has a list of to-dos for the week, make 40 phone calls, do 3 to 5 CMAs, do 6 face-to-faces, and then a few other little things that I would throw on there. And I started tracking it. And so every week when I would wake up, at first it was really awkward. I'm like, wait, what do I need to do today? Oh, that's right, I've got to make phone calls. Wait, what do I need to do today? Oh, that's right, I've got to do CMAs. And then eventually over time, what happened is I created a new pattern. I created a new habit. And so then I became really consistent. And when I became really consistent with the small few, that's a topic for another thing, right? Instead of doing 1,000 things really crappy, let's do a small few really well. Phone calls, CMAs, face-to-faces. When I got really consistent with those, my business exploded. So one of the biggest advantages to creating new routines and new habits is consistency. The other thing is, when I was unorganized in my business, it was exhausting because I was constantly going, okay, wait, what do I need to do? Oh, wait, okay, today I got to do this, and tomorrow I got to do that, and my brain was just going 1,000,000 miles an hour all day long. It was exhausting. And in the meantime, I'm just spinning my wheels. I wasn't actually making any progress because I was spending so much time processing what I needed to do instead of just doing the things that I needed to do. And so when we build habits, when we build routines, once again, it saves energy in our brain, which is why our brain likes to create these habits. And so once we train our brain with the proper habits, we can stop thinking about it so much. So early on, I was all over the place, had no consistency, did not have good habits. Then eventually I brought in the Greatness Tracker, started getting better habits. And then it became really clear. Oh yeah. And I'll go through kind of some of my other processes, but today's Monday. That means I'm making phone calls and setting up my face-to-faces. Tuesday, oh, that means I'm doing my CMAs. Okay, Wednesdays, that means I'm doing these meetings. And everything became really easy. And so every day I would wake up and I'd go, what do I need to do today? Oh, that's right. Boom, 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 boom. Write everything out on my Post-it. And then I just cross things off throughout the day. And so through that habit, through that process, I was able to save a bunch of energy. And then guess what I get to do with that energy? I get to put it into productive tasks, calling people, doing face-to-faces, meditating, business development, being present with my family when I'm actually home. I conserve all of that energy that I was spending on being all over the place. And I was able to take that energy and apply it to something more useful. That's the power of habits and routines. So I just want to kind of point out just take a second, kind of think about like, okay, so what are some of the, I don't like calling them bad habits because they're not necessarily bad habits. They're just habits that I typically hear people say they would prefer to break. So some of these habits that I think it's really important to be aware of, because if you catch yourself doing these, it doesn't mean you have to stop. But what I would recommend is just start questioning it. Like, is this a good use of my time? Is this the habit I want to build? So here's a perfect one for me. I wouldn't say I have road rage, but I definitely When I'm driving and somebody's going too slow, I'm like, speed up, let's go, right? And I try to catch myself doing that every single time because that is a waste of my energy. It gets me out of rhythm. It gets me into a point of judgment. It gets me into anger. It just does not serve me. So by becoming aware of the fact that I do this, it's a habit, just knee jerk. By becoming aware of it, I then can regain control and I can start forming new habits. So what I've started doing in that situation is when I notice myself wanting to judge somebody on the road, I stop and I start to ask myself, I wonder what their story is. I wonder what their childhood was like. I wonder why they're in such a hurry. I wonder why they go so slow. And how many kids do they have? And I just start like making stories about them. It helps get me out of that. So it's a new habit that I'm forming. So a lot of habits that people tell me are habits that they want to break. Social media, right? Especially in the morning, roll out of bed, grab your phone, social media. You're immediately reinforcing a behavior. You're reinforcing beliefs about the world. You're reinforcing, just everything that you do on a daily basis. So maybe cutting down social media time, watching news outlets, that's reinforcing current beliefs that you already have. It could raise anger. It could bring up judgment. It could bring up all these negative feelings that you say you don't want to feel anymore, but yet you keep going back to the well and drinking, the same thing over and over and over again. You're conditioning, right? It's building a habit. Fiddling with stuff around the house. A lot of us work from home, so maybe it's tidying up this and cleaning out that drawer and going out to the garage and cutting the lawn and taking a little nap and, or whatever it is, right? Just finding distractions around the house. Busy work. So now we're going to get into some more of like the business type stuff. So some habits that might be good to be aware of. Busy work. And busy work would include things like over strategizing. Well, I'm not ready to take action yet because I need to figure out the perfect plan for how to talk to this agent that I want to bring over. And once I have the perfect plan, then I'll talk to him. But the plan's never perfect. So we end up in an exercise of plan with no action. That is probably one of the most insidious habits that I see in entrepreneurs and in myself, because if we're planning, if we're strategizing, we don't have to take action. It's a perfect excuse. We're working, we're doing something. When in fact, if we want to get the results, the habit to build is action. Any action. Go screw it up. Make a call and look like an idiot. Do that 100 times, and then you're not going to worry about it anymore. So, I try to build the habit of action as opposed to I still strategize, right? But there's a balance between the two. Another one is learning new skills. Constantly taking new classes. So when I was a new agent, I took a lot of classes. I had to. I didn't understand the business. I didn't understand which direction I wanted to go. I wanted to learn all the different facets. How do I generate more leads? All that kind of stuff. So for the first year, I was in classes like 3-4 times a week. That makes sense. But at some point, we've got to get out of the classroom and just do. A couple other habits, complaining, judging. Market sucks. I can't sell anything. Whatever. Just complaining about generally things that are going on. I can't lose weight. I've tried everything. These are habits that we build. These are the internal dialogue that we have. And this takes energy. This takes time. We're opening up, I call it like our energy wallet, and we are paying our energy and our time to these things, judgment and complaining, and they're a lot of times we don't even notice it. They're just working in the background. And so every time we open up our wallet and we pay for complaining and judging, here you go. Here's my time. Here's my energy. Your brain goes, sweet, this is easy. Sweet, let's complain more. Sweet, let's judge more. Sweet, let's plan more. And then we sit there and we look back at our day and we're like, I feel like I worked so hard and I got nothing to show for. What the heck did I do today? Right? Well, we did work hard. We worked hard at thinking about what's wrong. We worked hard at judging. We worked hard at planning. We worked hard at strategizing, but we took 0 steps forward. That stuff takes energy, takes time. And so it feels like we're working when we're actually not. So, all right. So the next thing I want to talk about is like, okay, so let's look at the other side of that coin. What are some routines and habits that might help us either drive our business forward? And I guess we could apply this to business. We could apply this to physical health. We could apply it to mental health. We could apply it to really any aspect of your life, relationships or whatever. But what are some routines that we could start putting into place? And I'm going to come back to the same idea. There is only one way to implement a new routine. One way. Do it. Nike said it best, right? Just do it. There's one way. Thinking about implementing it, trying to implement it, needing to implement it, having to implement it, all of these things that we tell ourselves are complete wastes of time. It does nothing. The only thing that will create a new routine is to implement it. Do it. Take the step. Look like an idiot. Make a phone call. Whatever it is that you need to do to take that first step and be okay with whatever the result is, because you know that you're doing the one thing that's going to create a new habit, implementation. And so just like with, the kids that are shooting baskets and everything's awkward and whatever at first, eventually it starts to settle in. But it's that first step of just doing it, right? All right. So real quick, I just want to go through some of my routines that I've implemented. Obviously, you don't have to take any of these, but I just thought it would be good to give some examples of some of the routines and things that have changed my life and made my life easier. And, things that I've been doing for years that I'm going to continue to do. So I'll break it down into daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and then work and personal. But daily routines. The importance of daily routines is, once again, when I used to wake up and I didn't know what I was doing that day, there was a sense of like tightness in my chest. Like, you know what I mean? Just like, I feel like I should be doing something. I don't know what to do. And I would spend the whole day running my wheels. I hate that feeling. It just feels really crappy. And so I like to know exactly what I'm going to be doing, at least for the first half of the day, every single day. And that starts the night before. So typically as I'm getting ready for bed, I'll stop and just close my eyes and I'm like, okay, all right, tomorrow's Monday. We've got Mindset Monday at 9 a.m. So that means I need to be done with my morning routine by 8:45 so that I can get centered before Monday Mindset. Then I've got a call at 9:30 and then I've got and I go through my whole schedule and I know exactly what I'm going to be doing for the first part of the morning. So there's no surprises. For me, that's really, really, really powerful. It just gives me confidence as I start the day. So my daily schedule actually starts the night before. The next thing that I do is I try to do, why can't I think of his name? He does the TIME acronym. It'll come to me. Maybe one of you know. But for the morning routine, it's TIME, T-I-M-E. Thankful, inspirational, meditation, and exercise. So I always try to make sure I get into some kind of gratitude. Inspiration can be, you can watch a video, read a book, whatever it is, but do something that's going to, like this. This would be something, right? It's changing the way that you're thinking about the world. Any of those count as inspirational. Meditation, 1,000 different ways to meditate. If you want some really basic meditations that are really, really, really good, Joe Dispenza. He is so good at that. If you don't know where to begin, just Google Joe Dispenza or go onto YouTube and type in Joe Dispenza and just do some of his basic meditations. He's got 10 minutes and he's got 2 hours, and anything in between. And so he's got really good content. Jay Shetty, by the way, is the one that does the time thing. Think Like a Monk is his book. That's also a really good book. And then exercise. So exercise can be anything in my book. It could be stretching. It could be yoga. It could be going to the gym, running, walking outside. any of that kind of stuff. And one thing that I don't have in that time acronym, but one thing that I always try to do is Huberman talks about this. There is a physiological change in our brain when we get in the sunlight first thing in the morning. And he talks about having no barriers, no glass, no screen doors. Like ideally, you want direct sunlight in your face first thing in the morning, because what it does is it tells your brain, oh, it's daytime, and it actually changes the chemicals within your brain, and it wakes you up and just gives you more energy. So I've been implementing that as well for probably the last 6 months, and it's a game changer. So those are some of my daily routines. Then I go to the greatness tracker, and the greatness tracker is really intended to structure my week. And if anybody wants examples of the greatness tracker, just send me an email, danielgomer1@gmail.com, and I will send you some examples. So that's designed to encompass my entire week. So first I track time every single day. Was I doing my time stuff? And then I'm going to go down to the very basics of what I try to track every week as I'm building a real estate business. 40 phone calls a week, at least 4 face-to-faces a week is a minimum, and at least 3 CMAs, market analysis, for somebody in my sphere. That's it. You do those 3 things every single week for the next year, and your business is you're going to have more business than you know what to do with. You're going to have to put new systems and processes in place to handle the business that you're getting if you do those 3 things for the next year. So my business tracker tracks those things, and then a few other auxiliary things and stuff like that. And so the last thing that I'll say about a weekly routine is that some people like to time block their days. I like to like hours. I like to time block my days. So for me, Mondays are typically my catch-up days. What happened over the weekend, getting all caught up on those phone calls and those emails, and then making all, hopefully, of my phone calls for the entire week in one day. Because what I call it getting ahead of my week. Then on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I don't have to worry about making phone calls. That's done. So Monday's like my get ahead of the week day. Tuesday is my CMA day. Get all my market analysis done for all my people in the morning. Finish making phone calls and setting up face-to-faces and that kind of stuff. And then I've got Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to fill in the gaps and make sure I get everything else done again. So I block my days. So Monday and Tuesday are kind of my get ahead of the week. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are typically a little bit more flexible. And that's when I'm going to do most of my face-to-faces, one-on-ones, networking, all of that kind of stuff. So that's a 10,000 foot view of my weekly schedule. And that's what the greatness tracker is for. And then there's, monthly. You can look at monthly routines. I would say I've been thinking about this a lot. I think really the only monthly routine that I track, and you guys can hop in here too if you have some, is my goals. I try to look at my goals at least once a month, if not every week, and just kind of make sure it just reinforces it. Oh yeah, that's right. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing, because it's really easy to get off track. It's okay, I'm going to go do these 3 things and I'm going to generate this much income. And then you get 5 weeks in and then you're like, oh yeah, but there's this little thing over here. Let's add that in. And then 5 weeks later, it's oh, here's another little thing. And you add that in. Now you're doing 20 things really crappy instead of the 3 things really well. So by reviewing your goals at least once a month, it, will hopefully just kind of keep everything a little bit tighter, keep the focal points a little bit tighter, so that you remind yourself what it is that you're focusing on. And then my yearly routine is just reviewing my goals, reviewing my year. And you can do that on a monthly basis too, which is what reviewing your goals will also do, is kind of a review. And then at the end of the year, I always do a big annual review, what worked, what didn't work, what's next year look like, what do I want to do? And this usually takes me about 2 months, by the way, to do that yearly review and make sure I'm on track. So, all right, well, it's 9:30, so I'll wrap things up, but I'll just kind of wrap things up with just a quick overview. At the end of the day, our routines and habits are in place to help us to conserve energy. So we can either go with the flow and just utilize the habits that we already have in place, if you're good with that. But if you want to make changes, it's going to be uncomfortable, and it's very intentional on the front end. Very intentional. It feels awkward. It feels weird. It feels hard until you break those bonds in your brain and create new bonds, and then it becomes easy. So, yeah. So I guess I'll just wrap up with that, because I could probably talk about this for another half an hour, but I know you guys got to go. I want to be respectful of your time. So I appreciate you guys being on the call. If anybody wants to stick around and ask questions, you're welcome to. Thank you guys. Happy Monday.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.